Welcome into the fourth Mother Box. I am your co-host, and next to being Disney World's Pretzel Cart's #1 customer and co-host, I am Tom Okry. Joining me, as always, is the male equivalent to the Karen, Kyle Cosentino. Kyle, how the hell are you today?
Fuck you. That's how I am.
Oh, you saw these notes ahead of time, and you knew I was going to make the joke, so you kind of saw it coming. So you could have prepared a better retort instead of "fuck you." Come on.
No, I feel like that works perfectly. Fuck you.
Well done. But things that I've never said "fuck you" to, except for when I was fighting maybe Killer Croc in the first game, dealing with Scarecrow's fear toxin in the final game, or fighting Deathstroke in Origins, the prequel. I've never said "fuck you" to the Arkham video games that we'll be talking about today. You and I have a love fest about these video games, and you put up another superheroes video game next to it, and you can't hold a candle to it. So we're going to gush about this today. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Awesome. I would agree. But all right, first and foremost, before we get into news and rumors, my apologies. Last week I thought the microphone was picking up as I was sitting back like this, but that's why the mic, you could see it visibly, and I'm trying to do a better job, obviously, of connecting with the video. So the closer I need to be to the mic to be able to pick it up with the device that I'm working on. Long story short, apologies for last week if you listened to the MCU episode, which we had a lot of fun with, and thank you to all who listened to it. But we had some audio issues that we figured out. So, and that was even our 10th episode. Could you believe it, Kyle? Already 10 episodes. I mean, today's episode 11, and we already got to the Arkham video games. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, that is pretty nuts. I can't believe it.
Lots more to talk about, but let's start with news and rumors and stuff we like. So let's kick it off with DC, because why the hell not? Kyle, did you see James Wan on Instagram revealed the Aquaman sequel name, which will be Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom? So as we saw Arthur Curry in the first Aquaman ending as true King of Atlantis, putting his brother Orm behind ocean bars or whatever the hell you want to call that. Anything particular you want to see out of Aquaman 2? I mean, it's part of the loaded slate that DC's giving us in movies next year. What do you want out of it?
King Shark.
King Shark. Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know. Well, then again, I think about it. That might be a challenge with King Shark because he's in Suicide Squad, and I think they're probably going to make him more comedic than like serious. So I don't know. I mean, who else really is there for Aquaman outside of Black Manta and King Shark?
Well, Black Manta still has yet to really get his revenge on Aquaman. He's still around, and he was saved. And obviously he was supposed to be recruited by Lex Luthor and the Injustice League, but I can go off a tangent on that. But I think this Lost Kingdom, Black Manta is going to be heavily involved as the main antagonist. Obviously, Ocean Master or Orm, his Aquaman's brother's he's not done yet. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of him. Kind of like a Thor Loki thing. So anyway. But moving along, what we're looking forward to it. There's still lots of production, lots of filming that needs to be done on the movie, but more to come in 2022 on that. So, Kyle, you had made mention, speaking of projects with DC, Superman and Lois this week. In the past couple of weeks, it's just been excellent. Again, the only CW show that I truly enjoy watching anymore. And we had another big reveal, and spoiler alert, about Morgan Edge. You want to talk about that? Because you had a little bit of thought about Morgan being more than just, who he's portraying himself to be.
Well, at the end of the episode, you see him like in a suit and everything, and he's confronting Clark, and he calls Clark brother, and then he said that he's got Kryptonian in him, and I don't know if that's because he gassed himself with the Kryptonian, the kryptonite crystals that they're working with the other people where they're turning into like kind of like Supermen.
Oh,
But
the X Kryptonite. Yeah.
yeah, the X Kryptonite. Yeah, and I think my first thought was General Zod, and because I don't know who else that could be, and it would make sense, and I think that's awesome. That's an awesome, story arc, plot, and again, like this show is still doing really well. I'm kind of afraid though because it's on the CW. I feel like the CW always does the same thing with superhero shows outside of Batwoman. They have a good start, and like maybe the first couple seasons are good, and then they're just like, well, we're done. We'll just write whatever. This week we're gonna have the Flash dancing and doing the moonwalk and other stuff, and that's about it.
I saw a clip of that, and I didn't know if that was actually real. So they actually put that into the TV show.
They did, and actually, it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny to see that there was like a criminal that like makes people happy, like stupid happy, and like she dosed both Cisco and the Flash, and they were acting like stupid. It was funny. I think it
Okay.
was funny, but again, they're just kind of like we're running out of ideas. So next week's villain is going to be like a villain that steals people's pants or something.
Yeah,
The pants villain,
the pants villain.
pants stealing villain.
Excellent. But anyway, I'm with you there. I'm getting more and more invested in Superman and Lois every single week. I just don't hope it doesn't literally jump the king shark like the Flash and everybody else behind it did, including Supergirl. But anyway, I digress. Moving it along to other awful things. Apparently, fans are planning to rally for Joel Schumacher's extended cut for Batman Forever on Twitter. And I wish
No.
you're right. I wish I was lying about that. But dear God, what has the Snyder Cut movement done? Like, have we
Why would
created monsters here?
of all the movies, why would they want that one? Like, no, no, that don't.
Just
Nobody should entertain that. That can't even be real. They're just
just because they're so like pissed off at how the first one like came about, and then they saw the success of Zack Snyder and the Snyder Cut, and they're like, Joel Schumacher has a cut, I'm sure. I mean, how does this even start? How does this even happen? Like, you want to see more of the god awful Tommy Lee Jones Two Face? I mean, unless this movie got chopped up like Snyder's movies have with Warner Brothers, I don't know. The answer to this is no. We don't need to see more of this.
no, we don't. There's so many other like extended cuts that they could do. Like maybe the original Suicide Squad. Like we want to see more of what they did with Jared Leto's Joker, even though it was controversial. That would be cool. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm with you. But some new content that we are getting from DC. I don't know if you saw this, Kyle, but DC Super Pets. And the reason I mention this because one of our favorites, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, is voicing Crypto the Superdog, and his little buddy Kevin Hart will be Ace the Bat Hound. And it's funny because those names should be swapped. I feel like The Rock should be Batman's voice, and maybe Chris Rock should be Crypto. But anyway. Um,
Wait, do you say Chris Rock or Kevin Hart?
Oh, geez, Kevin Hart. Did I say Chris Rock?
Yes, you did.
But I'm thinking of The Rock, and I said Chris Rock and Kevin Hart together. Look at me. Good Lord. So Kevin Hart will be Ace the Bad Hound, and The Rock will voice Crypto the Superdog. Other names involved with the project are John Krasinski, Keanu Reeves has been confirmed, but we don't know who they're voicing yet. This could be one of those unexpected, enjoyable things if you aren't a kid. I feel like because with the dynamic that Kevin Hart and The Rock have that we've seen in their live action movies before, they could really carry that into an animated universe. And yes, it's DC Super Pets, and yes, it's geared for kids. It'll be TV PG, but why can't it be, kind of SpongeBob funny or Rocko's Modern Life funny, stuff like that? I think this has the potential.
I really think that it does too, and I feel like whenever they put The Rock and Kevin Hart together, no matter what it is, it's just funny. So I'm gonna be looking forward to it. I think that's probably gonna be more comedic than anything, even though they kind of had the teaser trailer. I only imagine that it's just going to be kind of more of like a fun, lighthearted type of film.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But looking forward to it. It's part of the slate that we're getting next year too. So I think it's coming out in the summer. Speaking of movies coming out next year, The Batman. Already having talks about the sequel. So this a little bit of spoilers involved here. But the Batman sequel, because we know Matt Reeves is signed on for 3 flicks with the Batman and Robert Pattinson. But the Batman sequel is rumored to have Mr. Freeze involved. So maybe Pattinson runs into a young Victor Freeze towards the end or sometime in the middle of this movie that we're going to get next year. And there's also a potential take and another take outside of the Snyder Cut on Deathstroke and Slade Wilson. Now, Kyle, you and I know we agree on the fact that we've always wanted to see a live action, movie, and we've gotten live action Deathstroke, but we need to see, since we're talking about it today, but Arkham Origins level Batman and Deathstroke going head to head, and then of course having Mr. Freeze kind of retcon what Arnold Schwarzenegger did back in Batman and Robin would be pretty sweet too.
All things considered, Arnold Schwarzenegger was kind of a fun Mr. Freeze. I mean, the whole like his accent and the whole like the quips that he would make, like keep cool, like I don't know. It was tacky and cheesy, but for me, I kind of liked it a little bit, even though that movie was deplorable. I mean, again, what are you gonna do?
Haven't heard that word in a while. Deplorable. I feel like that was a buzz 4 years ago.
Oh yeah, it was.
Good use of bringing that one back. I'm going to start calling people deplorable again. Anywho, so last bit of DC news. So we know Batgirl is going straight to HBO Max, but reportedly the Blue Beetle movie is going straight to HBO Max as well. Not to mention, and we haven't talked about much about these shows, but we'll also be getting a Peacemaker TV series, a live-action Green Lantern series, Justice League Dark. Yes, please give me all the Justice League Dark series. DC Superhero High. And then, of course, the Gotham City Police, the GCPD-centered Batman spinoff that we're getting. So it looks like Warner Brothers Discovery really wants to make a series for almost all of their DC properties and spinoff movies. So, like, they're looking into Batgirl going straight to HBO Max, maybe make a series off of that. But these 2 films in particular, like Batgirl and Blue Beetle, Batgirl probably known more than Blue Beetle just because of the notoriety and with the Batman connection. Do you think they're getting these 2 characters, comic characters, are getting disservice for not getting like the full theater treatment?
I mean, we haven't really seen what HBO Max is going to do. I mean, if it's anything like Disney Plus and their Marvel shows, I'm fine with it. Like, let it breathe. You know what I mean? It's kind of nice to see, like with WandaVision and Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that it's not like a 2-hour flick that they're just jamming everything into that 2-hour time frame. And right. I think it could be an interesting look at it for sure.
Yeah, let's and if you're going to make big movies and then series off of that, if that just means more DC content that we get, then bring it all on, just like you said. But I would almost like to see them do these lesser known characters, like you've mentioned before, Kyle, how the MCU did so well with like the Black Widows, the Hawkeyes, and all those characters that people didn't know, but now they're calling them. Make Blue Beetle a household name, make Batgirl a household name. There's a lot of potential there, and I'm glad we're getting it because I'm ready to consume as much DC properties as we can on HBO Max. So, but you mentioned Loki, so we're jumping right over to Marvel here. So Loki debuted, had his first episode this past Wednesday. Glorious Purpose, I believe, was the name of the actual episode title. So there's only 6 episodes for Loki. So we're gonna, over the course of the next 6 weeks, we'll break down each episode in our Marvel section of our news and rumors. But Kyle, I'll give you the floor here. What'd you think about the first episode of Loki?
I liked it. I kind of wasn't knowing what to expect with it. Honestly, kind of seems like a Legends of Tomorrow, but Marvel style. And I think Tom Hiddleston really owns the screen. Like he's just good in that role. So they can really do a story about him saving kittens, and it would be great.
Yeah, agreed with everything you said there. Tom Hiddleston does so well with Loki. It felt like more of a comedy, but it definitely, you knew the impact it had on the Avengers world in itself. I know some people, IGN specifically, but IGN, they hate anything good. So they specifically panned the episode a little bit for relying too much on the Avengers past, but I liked that part of the episode where Loki had to sit and rewatch his New York failure. He had to rewatch what happened. Well, he sees in the future what happens to his mother, and then eventually sees what happens to himself. So people bitched about the episode relying too much on that, but the fact that Loki now sees that and saw his future, I think is going to make a dramatic impact to the whole series. Where Loki's going to help the TVA out. And I have quick thoughts on the TVA. So the time, so they're essentially like the gods of this universe here, and they keep the timelines together, right?
Yes, that's my takeaway.
So don't you feel kind of dirty? So like now, Gamora died for nothing. The Infinity Stones are just paperweights to some of these people. It's almost like all the emotional investment you put into everything that came before Loki in that first episode, you finding out about the TVA, you just feel dirty. It's like, what the hell were we invested into? So it's like these things were supposed to happen, and does that make sense? It's like I really hope Marvel somehow explains this, or maybe the TVA is locked in their own timeline and they don't know of other universes. It's weird, right? It kind of makes you feel a little itchy and scratchy.
I hope they kind of. I would assume that they're going to explain this, by the end of like the sixth, by the end of the series. I wonder if they're going to continue on with Loki because he's got a huge following, and really they didn't focus much on him throughout the movies, believe it or not. And I think this is a good way to start like a deep dive into who this character is and what his motivations truly are. Because even in the first episode, when he kept asking him, do you kill people because you like it? You know what I mean? And
Right.
he kind of was like really having a hard time answering that. So I'd like to see where this goes. It seems like they're really doing a deeper dive into who Loki is, which I think is always a good way to do it and explore the character. So maybe we might get more of a serious type of role here, maybe, instead of
Yeah.
just kind of like your Thor Ragnarok comedy fest.
Ugh, I know, but no, this is good. This is a good balance for this character. Owen Wilson was pretty good too as Mobius M. Mobius. And I'm just really interested to see, obviously, that shadowy figure at the end. Again, spoiler alert for Loki. That should have goes without saying from when we started talking about this. But if you haven't watched it yet, what are you doing? If you're listening to this podcast, that shadowy figure at the end is Loki, I believe, from another timeline who knows about the TVA, and he's looking to kill them one by one so he could eventually become the gods of the universe. His glorious purpose. And they're using this version of Loki to stop the other version of Loki. So it's kind of a mind fuck a little bit, but also at the same time, it's really interesting to watch and see where they take this. Overall, I'd give the first episode about 8 out of 10. It was excellent. It kept me, right there involved the whole time, but it leaves me, really interested to see where they go with the next several episodes, because I don't want everything that we invested in beforehand to be not worth it, right? Um, so anyway, and also, Kyle, did you see the theories about the Peggy Carter cameo in the episode?
I missed the Peggy Carter cameo.
Okay. So when Loki is standing in the hallway, when he's like phasing and trying to get away out of the room that he's locked in and running away from the one security guard, um, behind him on the right-hand side, you see a portal open, and I didn't catch this when I was watching initially. I had to see the internet talk about it. A woman walks out with a TVA officer out of like one of those portals, like the same one Loki came through when they arrested him in the desert for time crimes. A woman walks through with like a TVA security guard. It looks exactly like Peggy Carter. So people are speculating that she got in trouble for breaking her timeline with something, and could be happen to do with the Captain America thing at the end of Endgame.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, because you think about it at Endgame, Captain America just kind of goes rogue for a minute and just decides that instead of coming back, he's going to do his own thing.
Mm-hmm. But
But
what was that supposed to happen? Just like they said, like what happened with the Avengers in Endgame, them going back into time. Mobius and Mobius happened. So I don't know.
It's like, well, why was that supposed to happen? I mean, maybe you could get really in an existential conversation there, but like people were supposed to die just to be brought back. Like, it's kind of crazy when you think about it.
It is. But yeah, we're looking forward to more of that. So another series that's coming to Marvel is Marvel's What If, and I said I was really looking forward to this one. We got some leaked images showing us a party Thor, the show's host, the Watcher, who's like a godlike character in the Marvelverse, and King T'Challa as Star-Lord, believe it or not. So we're going to get a lot of those versions and stories on the Marvel What If show. AC Bradley, who's a developer of the series, has stated that the first season, so we're going to get multiple, will play out like a Marvel Studios film. That's pretty freaking cool. The possibilities are endless. What the hell would you like to see on What If, Kyle?
I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that we're getting all of our favorite characters from this film franchise back, you'll get to hear Robert Downey Jr. again and Sam Jackson and even, and like I said, mentioned in another podcast, you see Chadwick Boseman kind of do his final performance. I think it's endless. It would be kind of interesting to see where this goes. Maybe some like zombie Captain America. I think I might have saw that in the trailer. I don't remember if that was in that trailer, but I'm just open to it. I don't really have any expectations or any like demands with it. I just think it's going to be kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, agreed. I don't have any demands, except my only demand might be more Thanos. I'd like to see what the world would continue to look like if he lived out his glorious purpose. For us to talk about that, like the Avengers past 5 years, they never went back and changed the world for the better. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. So, anywho, speaking of Black Panther and Chadwick Boseman, Tenoch Huerta has been cast as Namor in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, basically paying off the tease from Endgame when Black Widow asks, I'm going to say her name wrong, Okoye, yeah, about the tremor in the ocean. And she responds, an earthquake. We handle it by not handling it. So Namor, who is Marvel's version of Aquaman, and before you jump on me, people, I know Namor came first before Aquaman, so you can say Aquaman is the ripoff of Namor, whatever.
Like that's Thanos with Darkseid.
Exactly. Calm down. I'm admitting it. We're admitting that. So, but I'm just trying to explain the character. So, in the oceans, earthquake in the oceans, kind of nice little subtle mention in Endgame, and it looks like it's going to pay off in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. All right, and still with that movie, Kyle, with the death of Chadwick Boseman, it's like how do you recover? How do you first off create a sequel that a lot of people are highly anticipated for, with your star gone and you can't bring them back? It's not a job that I'd want to have creatively. It's got to be a challenge.
I think their only move is they can make Shuri Black Panther because that's what they did in the comics, and then bring back T'Challa but from a multiverse. I think that would be perfect because that would also, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that would be insulting to his memory, but I feel like it's insulting to not like continue on his character. I mean, I feel like if that was me and I had died, I would want my character to live on. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
so it'll be an interesting thing that they do. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it, and I'm very eager to watch that, hear
Me
more
too.
about
Me
it.
too. Yeah, it's one of the ones that I'm really looking forward to a lot because I just want to see what the hell they're going to do with that. So awesome. So we're moving into Star Wars news. And Kyle, I don't know if you saw my post about the T-shirt I'm wearing, which you're going to like.
Wrong.
Thank you very much. The Last Jedi is canon, and thank you for Enchanting Sunshine on Etsy for grabbing that shirt for me. Or not grabbing, making the shirt. So giving a little shout out there to The Last Jedi is canon, Kyle. So suck it. Thank you very much. But anyway, the reason why I'm showing that is moving into Star Wars news. So the Variety website or magazine, whatever the hell it calls itself now, hosted a virtual chat for their Actors on Actors series. And the two latest were Star Wars legends, Pedro Pascal and Ewan McGregor. They talked quite a bit about both of their experiences while playing these iconic characters in the Star Wars franchise. So specifically McGregor, mentioned that to Pascal that, hey, he's working with a ton of the Mandalorian crew that Pascal worked with, and McGregor praised how they're filming scenes and like how it's just isn't a bunch of green screens anymore, like the prequels were. And Ewan McGregor, obviously played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels, will reprise the role in the Kenobi series coming up on Disney Plus. Worked with a ton of green screens in those films, and he just said it got, he worked with Yoda, the Yoda puppet originally in the Phantom Menace, and then it went digital in Episode 2 and Episode 3. So you kind of lose the lore of that character, because Pedro Pascal too really went on and on in that interview to say working with Grogu, the puppet with Mando, was so much cooler than just having to interact with something that's digitally and CGI that whole time. And they both gushed over how cool it really was and how surreal it was. So the reason I'm mentioning this is Star Wars news, because the two of them together, and Pedro Pascal did mention how big of a secret it was not to tell his family about Grogu before the big reveal. But Ewan McGregor kind of didn't slip, but he made mention of what we're possibly going to see in the Kenobi series. So he's interacting with stormtroopers for the first time, because they were clones previously when Obi-Wan interacted with them either in the Clone Wars or the previous 3 films. So Ewan McGregor's pretty bonkersed out that he's actually working with real stormtroopers now. And it sounds like we're going to get Jawas again. I mean, he is on Tatooine, so I liked this. They talked a lot about, their Star Wars experiences. And another thing, unfortunately, Kyle, Pedro Pascal confirms they haven't shot anything for The Mandalorian Season 3 yet, which is sad. Trumpet noise is kind of upsetting.
Ooh.
I know. But we're getting the Book of Boba Fett at the end of this year, and then Kenobi soon after. We still have the Andor series, the spinoff from Kyle's favorite Rogue One movie, which is in production. I feel like, shut up. I feel like Disney Plus has their focus on the Marvel shows right now, and it will transition back to Star Wars again in December with the Book of Boba Fett. So, out of all that coming, Kyle, what do you? And you're the casual Star Wars fan. I mean, I'm looking forward to all of it, but what do you want to see the most?
I think a Boba Fett series would be pretty interesting. I liked how he was included into the Mandalorian season 2, and I think, even if I always kind of found it interesting with Boba Fett and why he was so popular, because if you look at the old school series, like, he's not really in it very much. He's a very low key character, but people rave about him. So I think it'll be interesting to explore that character a lot more, and even if we get like some Jabba the Hutt back in there too, that would be cool. Or wait, is that? I forget the timeline. Is that before or after he's dead? No.
This is after.
No.
The Mandalorian is after
That's right.
Jabba's dead. Yeah, this is post Episode 6.
Okay, so maybe not, but it's, yeah. So that's where I always kind of like I kind of like lose focus, is like with the where Star Wars at in the timeline, and That's
Yeah.
always really complicated, I feel like.
It can be. It can get complicated with that. But yeah, the Book of Boba Fett will be set in the Mandalorian universe. From my understanding, is it'll be post Mandalorian season 2 because Fennec Shand is hanging out with him too. So she's got to be like super old because she's in the season of the Bad Batch right now, and the Bad Batch is right after Revenge of the Sith, and got like 20 years ahead of them. So anyway, I digress. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Kenobi the most. I mean, out of everything, I'm going to watch everything. I'm going to be there as soon as they drop on Disney Plus. But I can't wait to see Ewan McGregor reprise his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi because it's going to be great. And we've got Hayden Christensen too. So moving it along. So what else is coming to Disney Plus? Kyle, you and I talked about this a little bit. The Behind the Attraction series coming to Disney Plus, as we're in our Star Wars theme park section on July 16th. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, our guy, is on to produce with Danny Garcia, who's his producing partner and ex-wife. And it will give a never or seldom told stories about our beloved Disney parks attraction. First and foremost, before we kind of talk about what ride we'd love to see on this TV show, is there anything that The Rock is not involved in?
I'm convinced now that he's a clone. I mean, he's got to be because or he doesn't sleep. I mean, I don't know. Like he's filming Black Adam. He's working out like a maniac. He's doing other movies and TV shows and speaking engagements, and then he has his Facebook and Twitter that he makes time for. And it's like, I don't even know. Like he's one of the hardest working men in Hollywood for sure.
He is. You want motivation from somebody who has had their challenges and shit. Not to mention, you said all that. He's got his own TV show. He's got his energy drink. Like good Lord, that dude does it all. And he's fine with tattoo.
and his clothing line, and not to mention his kids. Like he's got two like little kids, and then I think he's got an older kid, and like a wife. And I'm like, how do you even make time for that? Like that's, and kids especially. Like that's like an all around the clock type job. That's crazy.
I'm wearing his Project Rock that The Rock is behind it, and anything that he's involved in, I am confident in. Of course, he's put bad movies out there and he's been involved in shitty things before, but this is behind the attraction that we're seeing. I'm to. I don't think they're going to talk about Spaceship Earth. I'd love to see Spaceship Earth, kind of like some seldom told stories about that. But give us the classics like Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion, the Space Mountains and Splash Mountains. Like give us never before told stories about those attractions, those iconic classic ones. So
yeah, maybe they can go more into depth with like the Galaxy's Edge too.
They could, yeah. They absolutely could, and hopefully this isn't the last season or the first and last season that we're getting of Behind the Attractions. So, Kyle, your avenue here, we saw some leaked photos of Mr. One Harrison Ford in his Indiana Jones getup. What'd you think about that?
You know what? I can't even begin. We were just talking about The Rock and how he's one of the hardest working men in Hollywood. Harrison Ford, outside of Indiana Jones, like they were showing pictures of him, outside of like filming, and he was like riding a bike 30 miles at age 78, like 30-mile bike ride. And just for, kind of like perspective, like I'm 35 in good shape and health, and like 16 miles is the most that I've done in one day. I mean, that's pretty amazing for an old man. So I think that it'll be interesting to see what they do with his character. I'm just so fascinated by it because they've had to have decided on a reason why they were going to go forward with this movie, especially with Harrison Ford being so old. But I give him credit for doing it. I think he looks great still, and maybe like I was saying before, maybe they'll kind of do like a Logan storyline with him. Maybe it's like a not as action thriller-esque, but more dramatic, and maybe a more drama-driven film, which I wouldn't be against. Like I really wouldn't. But
Me neither.
Indiana Jones has always been known for its action and stunts, and so I just wonder what it's going to be.
Are you gonna cry like a little girl when Indiana Jones eventually dies?
If Harrison Ford kills off Indiana Jones, I'm going to find him in real life and show him my ass or something like that.
You better start preparing yourself, man. It's gonna happen, especially if it's gonna be like Logan, because James Mangold is directing this, right?
He is.
Yeah. So you're strap it in. It's gonna be one hell of a mind fuck.
You know what though? You don't have to kill a character to retire them. You know what I mean? Like
True.
you could like at the Last Crusade, you just see him right off into the sunset, and that would have been fine. I mean, they came out with the Crystal Skull many years later, and then they had like his brief cameo on the Young Indiana Jones series. But I don't. You don't have to kill him. Like you really don't. Maybe if that makes sense for the plot line and the story, okay, I guess that's fine. But I just felt like Han Solo to this day, like that that just pisses me off. Like I feel like you wait so long 40 years to see this character return to the screen, then you just fucking kill him. Hell no. I know Harrison Ford wanted that, but like
Yeah.
I'm still not. What I'm saying is I'm still not over it. Still not
But
over it.
real quick, in defense of that scene happening, um, Ben Solo needed to kill his father.
I
To
know. I know the whole
his
thing. I get it.
So, all right, as long as you understand, but I get you being a crabby little teen about this, but just I'm telling you, prepare yourself. Indiana Jones might get yeeted off a bridge, and we'll never see him again. And I don't know. Do you think? And like I said, the closer we get to this movie releasing, I've committed myself to learning as much as I can, binging the movies, so we can have a good old podcast about it when this eventually comes out. Maybe the first trailer drops, something like that. But do you think they're going to pass the proverbial torch to anybody during this movie? It's to create future in the
I
franchise,
think
or
that
do you think
once
it's done?
Harrison Ford passes away, then they're going to do that and maybe like really reinvent, not reinvent, but really breathe more life into this character because
Okay.
you talk about Hollywood movie roles that are icons. I mean, Darth Vader, Han Solo, Indiana Jones. Like, you can't just keep them in history. I mean, you don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to like forget about them. And then I almost kind of look like Indiana Jones, like a James Bond. Like James Bond is a great role. I mean, they always find a way to reinvent him and come back with him. I don't think they should do that excessively with Indiana Jones, but I would definitely love to see a reboot. I mean, people have like photoshopped Chris Pratt's face into like Harrison Ford with the fedora. He looks great, but even Chris Pratt's getting a little bit older. But I think it would be interesting to maybe like even Tom Holland, like put him as maybe not Tom Holland, but somebody like that is like a younger indie and
Yeah.
coming back with it because that's a cool storyline. But I'll say this too is that they're filming in the UK and the only thing that we really know is that there are Nazis in the film because they showed like I think it was like a train yard. They're filming in a castle, I think in
Okay.
Scotland. So we're going to see some Nazis returning, which is interesting because the film's timeline has been consistent. So even with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they picked up right after Last Crusade. So Nazis were apparently a thing of the past at that point, or they've been gone for 20 years at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So I wonder if this is like a resurgence or something.
Interesting. We'll be. I can't wait to look into it more and definitely check it out. So, speaking of things resurfacing, Fast and Furious franchise just won't fucking die. But about that, I'm talking about what's going to be coming along with it, and we haven't talked much really at all ever, I think, on the podcast about the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World franchises. But both Kyle and I, at least we are heavily invested in them. But a Jurassic World Dominion teaser trailer is to be shown ahead of Fast 9 in theaters. I mean, I think it's worth it just to pay for a ticket for F9 and walk out after the Jurassic World spot.
Yeah.
We did get an official release date for Jurassic World Dominion of June 10th, 2022. So we're officially less than a year. Are you stoked?
I am. I don't know really anything about Dominion, and I think that I've always loved like the Jurassic Park series. I think they've always done a really good job. Jurassic World was a great comeback. It was such a great film. Last one was good. Um, I think I like Jurassic World better, but the one thing that the last one that they didn't do that really kind of bothered me is they didn't include enough of Ian Malcolm's character, and they didn't really use the Jurassic Park theme as much. If you go back and watch that film, you don't really hear it, and I'm just like, you can't have that movie without the iconic theme. I don't care if it's like rebooted or like it's many years later. It's like Star Wars. You can't not have that theme, or Indiana
Right.
Jones for that matter.
Great point, and I never thought about that until you made mention of that. They really don't have it, do they? But Dominion, what we know about Jurassic World Dominion is we're getting our old characters back. Dr. Grant, Dr. Sadler. I mean, Ian was in the last movie, like you said, barely, but they're coming back. I'm completely expecting Dr. Alan Grant to die by velociraptors or something. We're gonna see his character come full circle. One of the original characters are gonna die in this movie. It's bound to happen, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm pleased. I can't remember who's directing. If it's Colin Trevorrow directing this movie again, but please, for the love of God, do not give us another scene where Brachiosaurus is like crying on the edge of a lake as is going away, and it eventually dies. The worst scene ever in the history of films. It just the worst. So, moving along and wrapping up theme park section. So this week, June 15th, to the general population, Disney's Boo Bash tickets go on sale to Gen Pop. And Boo Bash is essentially their replacement for the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party this year, because they're still got COVIDed and they're still getting things back together, and it's not full capacity yet. And this leads me right into what this ginger is snapping about this week, okay? And I don't know what's more infuriating lately, crypto Twitter or Diz Twitter. I mean, Bitcoin maxis aside, at least there's a semblance of intelligence to the core of crypto Twitter. But boy, oh boy, not with Diz Twitter. Diz Twitter was erupting this week as the tickets for resort guests for Boo Bash went on sale, and the hold times on the phone were fucking astronomical, which is really too bad. But I feel for these cast members who had to deal with all the Karens of the world calling them up and bitching at them, trying to get themselves a ticket for Boo Bash. But the problem I have, and the main problem that I have with you people, is the complaints about what Boo Bash is offering have resurfaced again because you people don't have lives and you have to bitch about everything on the internet. It's just as depressing to see a handful of adults scream at the top of their lungs their unwanted opinions, much like this podcast, of how Disney is ruining their October because Not So Scary Halloween Party's not coming back. I mean, what do you want from Disney, Diz Twitter? What the fuck do you want? Like, Disney doesn't owe you or me or anybody shit, okay? No matter how entitled you think you are, they owe us nothing because they've been supplying us with the options of entertainment for several years upon several fucking years. And they aren't scared to try new things and give us new options. Stop comparing the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party to this. This ain't it. These things are two different entities. A year ago, you all were clamoring for an after hours party like this. And now that we've got it, you can't shut the fuck up about how Disney screwed it up because you need to see the mouse fail for some reason, for some insecurity reasons of yourself. Okay. The best part about all of this is that you will still shell the money out you've confidently bitched about on Twitter for this event. You're still going to pay for it and you're going to go. I'll see you there, but I've never bitched about it once. You secretly will love this after hours party. You'd be sad when it doesn't return next year because Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party comes back when they're back to 100% capacity for a while. You know, if you really want somebody to be mad about, and I'm not getting political here, but if you really want to be somebody to be mad about, look at the politicians that have played with our lives during these lockdowns and this reintroduction to normalcy. They're the reason we can't have nice things and have full capacity at things, okay? It's when the states shut this shit down and like these theme parks basically had to follow regulations. I mean, Disneyland won't be back to 100% for a while, okay? All of our safety be damned. We're at the point where people can make decisions for themselves. Target your selective outrage at the real problem or actually do something about it instead of posting on your Windows 95 ran e-machine that's in the corner of your sister's basement where you live. It's too bad that Old Navy didn't call you back for your part-time job that you can't work weekends on because you have to hold a virtual D&D party with a Ukrainian girl who is catfishing you into a K-1 visa and will steal all your precious vintage Star Trek memorabilia. Star Wars is superior anyway. Long story short, shut the fuck up about this boo bash nonsense, people, okay? What I'm trying to get across to you is you're going to go, you're going to enjoy it. Just have fun with life. And if it really bothers you that much, the prices or what they have to offer, then just don't go. It's more room for me. It's more room for Kyle. It's more room for my wife. It's more room for people who actually like to enjoy life at theme parks. It's not that complicated. Okay? Good God. Oh, let's talk about Arkham Asylum, the Arkham video games. Does that sound good, Kyle?
Hell yeah.
All right. Let's start with the first, the OG. Kyle, tell us all about the Arkham Asylum game and just what did you love about this game? 2009 it came out, won our hearts. Just go. What do you love?
Well, what's funny is, and I don't know if you remember this, but when they released the demo of that game, you actually came over to my house when I was living with my parents at the time.
Yes,
and
sir.
You were living in Illinois at the time. And like I remember we started the demo, and like right on the start screen, we both decided that this game was fucking awesome. I remember we both thought that. But the games were so good, and I felt like they got progressively better as the years went on. And it's I think it's large in part because it brought back the dynamic duo of Mark Hamill's Joker and Kevin Conroy's Batman, and it introduced a great storyline. And not only that, it introduced a whole new playing style and combat system. Combat system utilized a brand new, like, free flow type of combat, the likes that no video game has ever seen. What was so cool about it is that you could fight using Batman's moves and Batman's gadgets. It's like he moved like Batman. It was incredibly satisfying, even by today's standards. Not only that, it introduced the Predator encounters. Right. This is where it really captured the essence of Batman, because he's a vigilante that attacks from the shadows and utilizes fear on his opponents, and you kind of can see some parts of like the Dark Knight Returns in that, where he's like grabbing enemies through walls and stuff like that. And so it was really cool, and it really was ahead of its time, and I feel like it still in many ways is one of the best games out there. And I think the combat system was so innovative and at the time that it was then pirated by so many games thereafter. Spider-Man PS4. But again, and I think, people will always resonate with these characters, and no matter what, they can continue on, and they should continue on. And I think people will really always, invest.
It's funny because these are the modern Batman video games of our time, right? Obviously, for the most part, our parents, grandparents weren't going to have, like, if they were into video games, they weren't going to have things like this, right? I think I vaguely remember growing up in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s. There was a Batman video game for Nintendo or Sega that I remember. I think it was based on the first Michael Keaton movie, but anyway, these are the modern era, like, generation defining Batman games. And it may not sound like a lot for just somebody on the surface, but for us, people who are so invested in this character, invested in the universe that surrounds Batman, what he stands for, what he means, Batman Arkham Asylum, we didn't know what to expect from this, right? And just like you said, Kyle, I remember that day vividly, sitting in your room playing the demo when it came out, and just, Batman chilling. I think it was on a gargoyle at the load screen or whatever it was for that demo. It was just, holy shit, like, that's Batman. And the opening cutscene with the Joker walking through Arkham Asylum, running into Killer Croc. It's still scarier than hell. Yeah, I remember the first time running into Croc, and you've said this before, when he's coming up the elevator when he's like, "I've got your scent, Batman," and it's just like you're pissing your pants. So like, I think I had to pause the game, stand up, and walk around my apartment for a while after that part when I actually played it. But 2009, this game just won our hearts, and credit to Rocksteady Studios for and did you know this? It's funny, and we'll talk about all the sequels and the prequel, but we got a new Arkham game every 2 years from 2009 to 2015. And thank you, Rocksteady Studios, for that. Hindsight, this is amazing, even though it felt like each game took forever. But that was our own, anticipation. You talked about gameplay, Kyle. You talked about those combos, making it easy to feel like you're actually kicking ass as Batman. I fucking love that slow motion knockout camera when you're basically done annihilating a threat in the room, like that last thug that you're fighting. It goes all slow mo, knocks him out. This game alone, to me, is the greatest comic book game of all time, hands down. It's very tough to top it. The storyline alone is enough to make you obsessed. Now, it's not my favorite, and we'll rank them later, obviously, but it's the greatest of all time. The fact that Conroy and Hamill reprised their infamous roles again for the Joker and Batman is just, it enhanced what already was a great series. If they had different voices, it wouldn't be as iconic, but it'd still be a great video game. They just really fucking enhanced it. Even though I eventually bought the game after we played that demo, and it just means a lot to me on a personal level too. When I was really into this video game series and we're playing it again for the Riddler trophies, was around the time this game came out, in the months around then when I was really getting into it and replaying it. Lost my first dog, Sandy, and super depressed about that. But this game helped me get out of that hole of losing your first pet and you losing your best friend at that time. So this game means so much personally to me, and there's just a deep connection. I mentioned Killer Croc still scaring me in that one part when you fight him in his boss battle. That's still, the fact that you can't use detective mode. Whoever thought of that is fucking great. And you get to play as Batman and the world's greatest detective. You get to solve crimes, really, just like Batman in the comic book does. I don't know why it took so long. Maybe they were just waiting for the technology to catch up with everything else. Why it took so long to make a game this fucking awesome. If I had one gripe about the game, and it's nitpicky, but ultimately, when you went to replay the game, it was the same story over again, which was fine. There was Riddler trophies to get, but outside of that, it was like, okay, the game's over. It left you wanting more.
That's the problem with every Batman game, is that they leave you wanting more.
Did you have any initial gripes about this one game in particular?
Arkham Asylum?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
The whole series?
No. Arkham Asylum, because we're talking about Arkham Asylum typically.
Outside of wanting more, not really. I think if you go back and play it today, you can tell that it's dated. But I mean, it came out in 2009. I mean, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's only to be expected, but it's still, for what it is, it's still a fun game. I mean, if anything, the storyline is always so interesting. I always loved hearing Mark Hamill's Joker come over the PA and say something funny like, "What are you visualizing? Me in a thong?"
Yeah.
It's just classic Mark Hamill's Joker, and I feel like this is the peak performances of both him and Kevin Conroy, hands down.
Who was your favorite villain from Arkham Asylum, the game specifically, outside of the Joker?
Yeah, you always kind of have to put in that.
Yeah.
I would probably say, Killer Croc is. I would say probably both Killer Croc and Scarecrow. Scarecrow, because the nightmare sequence was really cool, and the fact that he keeps dosing Batman, and Batman just gets to the point where he's not affected by it. But
right.
I think in Killer Croc, for the reasons that you said, is that he was just so fucking terrifying.
Yeah, for me, I love the Poison Ivy storyline in the Arkham verse. She always plays such a pivotal role to Batman's success, one way or another. Like in Arkham Asylum, I fucking hated when she sprouted those damn plants everywhere that would shoot the like lasers at you to like protect you from not killing it or whatever. Like the little orbs of power or whatever that came from Poison Ivy's like bulbs. Um, and she was like protecting her plants from being infected with the toxin. And then even we get into Arkham Knight, she plays a huge role in Arkham Knight. A lot of people bitched about Poison Ivy's villain or her boss fight in Arkham Asylum. I don't know why. I mean, especially if you played it on a more difficult level, that was a tough ass fight. I don't know. I think that complaint is just lazy, and you're not, yeah, really like willing to accept how good of a game this is. It's like you're looking for something. So Poison Ivy, outside of the Joker, is my favorite. I loved how there were, as you walked through the halls of Arkham, Asylum, and the mansion that was where most of the staff was, you saw bits and pieces depending on where you were at in the asylum of villains who weren't in the game. You saw remnants of Tweedledee, Tweedledum. You saw stuff about Catwoman and the Penguin, even though they weren't in the game. They were in Arkham City. But and even the game itself tipped you off that Arkham City was coming eventually too in one of the rooms in Arkham Asylum. So again, my opinion, best modern day comic book video game of all time. It's tough to beat, and it just made the sequel even more appealing. So Arkham City came out in 2011, and I remember specifically, I was actually out of state for work. I was in Baltimore, Maryland when this game released. I forced the people who I was on the work trip with to go to Best Buy and buy this game, even though I couldn't play it yet until I got home a few days later. I needed to have it in my possession. I needed to be in my carry-on luggage. I needed to carry the goddamn thing with me. Like, I didn't care. Like, I needed it. So eventually got home, obviously. This game just so highly anticipated for it. I still remember the reveal of Arkham City during what was the name of that, like Game TV, or there was GTV, right? There was like a TV station on, maybe it was on Spike TV. I don't know. I know it doesn't exist anymore, but there was like video game awards. They were making a big deal about it, and that's when Arkham City got revealed. There was that trailer that they showed through the industrial portion of Arkham City, and then eventually got to a really sick Joker. So it made you like mind blown, like what the fuck was going on? So again, I told the Baltimore story. So this game had a bigger world, more villains, deeper story with the two main antagonists of the Joker and Hugo Strange. Batman was thrown into the pit of doom immediately, and I love the opening sequence of Arkham City so much. Like it's my favorite of the series. Like how you walk through the prisoner intake. If you turn the right angle, you see Black Mask fighting off those prisoner guards. And you don't know it yet. At least I didn't know it yet, but you run into Deadshot in line. And then eventually, after saving Jack Ryder, you run into Penguin right away as Bruce Wayne. And then get to beat the shit out of his thugs in Penguin as Bruce Wayne, and eventually get your bat suit. But the playable story of Catwoman is cool too, something I admittedly struggled with at first for whatever reason. And I don't remember why. Like I remember struggling with that last part of her story. Maybe it was just the gameplay, but it was weird. The Riddler challenges were so much more plentiful to go around this go around. And not to mention, I loved the added side missions, like taking out Mad Hatter, taking out the current Deadshot as it was. And really all of that. And they, again, nailed it with the voice actors for every baddie, or bad guy in this with Penguin, Two-Face, Catwoman, and Tara Strong, actually, as Harley Quinn is still my favorite, outside of Conroy and Hamill. So what did you think of Arkham City?
Well, they really started to open up after this game. This world really started to open up. And I feel like whenever I think about my quintessential Batman villains and who did it right, I would say like Rocksteady. They crafted each villain so well. Just the way that they looked, the way that they acted. I mean, they just did a great job. The only one that they didn't do well was Bane. Well, obviously they went for more comic book, but then like I feel like they really rectified that in Arkham Origins. But that was done by it was like Montreal, I believe.
Warner Brothers Montreal, yeah.
Montreal. Okay, so but yeah, the world really opens up, and like you were saying, that opening scene in Arkham City is just so satisfying. It's just so Batman. And when you eventually get up to the roof and like the bat plane drops that pod and you get in your suit for the first time, and then you can start exploring the world. It's it's like every Batman's fan's wet dream. It really, yeah, you can really not say a lot bad about it for sure.
No, no, and talk about the twist too in the game too. Right away at the ending, I mean, first and foremost, Hugo Strange. You find out that he's a puppet of Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins. Um, One of my favorite parts about the game is going down into Wonder City and having to find Ra's al Ghul because you're basically on your deathbed and you need to be kept alive for a little bit longer. I just love playing through that section. I don't know what it is because it's just so cryptic, and you get to see like old school Gotham City. Wonder City was the world they were trying to create and rid the rest of the world of this seedy underbelly of crime that was Gotham City. But anyway, so Hugo Strange being a puppet of Ra's al Ghul, and then at the end, Joker dying, like Batman not saving him. I mean, to each his own. Joker attacked him with a knife, and there's still that ever popular quote from Batman. He's like, what's funny was I could have saved you, or I would have saved you. And as Joker's dying, he's laughing and coughing. He's like, that is funny. And then eventually dies. And no one really ever, I don't think Batman or Bruce ever really tells the true story to anybody in the Arkhamverse of what really happened between him and the Joker during that part. Because even Harley Quinn in the games following blames him for the death of the Joker. So I think that's so cool that just, and at first I was pretty upset. Like, holy crap, they killed the Joker in their second game. Like, I was hoping for a sequel at least, because I still wasn't done after playing Arkham City. I wanted more. We haven't even driven the Batmobile yet, or even flying the Batwing. So when they killed the Joker, I was admittedly a little bit taken back, but about how you go on with the Batman story without the Joker. But we'll get on to talking about it. They freaking nailed it.
Mm-hmm. So, absolutely, and that was such a shock to see, because you're like, this is the second game, and you obviously know there's going to be a sequel, and then they just kill their biggest gun, which you don't really. I can't come to mind. Like, I can't really think a lot of like animated movies or storylines where the Joker actually dies. When you think about it, it really hasn't happened, and so that was kind of a ballsy move by Rocksteady, and it so paid off in Arkham Knight, 100%.
Absolutely did. 100% did. Yeah, we definitely. And I realize I gave praise to Rocksteady earlier about games every 2 years, so I should thank Warner Brothers Montreal as well, in conjunction with Rocksteady, for giving us one every 2 years. But yeah, ballsy to kill him off. I mean, like you said, the only other ones I could think of outside of going down a list of comic stories that are canon, The Dark Knight Returns being one of the only ones that the Joker just actually dies in. But that made sense, and this makes sense too after it all played out. Do you have a favorite side mission in Arkham City?
I'd have to think about that. I mean, yeah, they're all so good. There's nothing that personally comes to mind that I can think of. It's been a minute since I played it. I mean, I think the most recent one that I've played was Arkham Origins, but I feel like I'm most connected to Arkham Knight more than any of them. Okay. What about you?
I would say it's a tie between the Mad Hatter one, because he tricks you into taking the cure that eventually gets you beating the shit out of all those dudes in the rabbit masks, and then you eventually beat that off. Or I really like the Bane one, just because of its connection to Arkham Asylum still. By he wants you to destroy all the Titan containers still, and then help him out, and then you eventually have to fight side by side with Bane. But then you eventually put him behind bars still because he had an ulterior motive. But I don't know. I just it's just a personal favor for whatever reason. So moving it along, you did mention Arkham Origins, and funny enough, that was the last one I played as well. So now prequel time. So Origins is very controversial, Kyle, but came out in 2013 to a so-so reception. What tell us about Origins? What are your thoughts on Arkham Origins, the third game in the series, and the prequel?
So before I mention that, I want to say that what I always liked about the Arkham series, is their hidden Easter eggs that kind of predict the future. And then there was that one in Arkham Asylum that nobody knew about. It was in the warden's office, and you had to use the bat gel to spray it in this very specific way in order to get into that room that showed you the blueprints to Arkham City. And then in Arkham City, they did that again with, there was that boat that you land on, and then you kind of have to, use the cryptographic gun, or I forgot what it's called, but you have to use
the cryptographic sequencer.
Yeah, cryptographic sequencer, and you have to use it in a way where the boat opens, and it's not something that they explain to you or they give you any hints about. You pretty much just read about it on the internet. It could have really gone unnoticed, but that led into the Scarecrow Easter egg that obviously went on to be the Arkham Knight. So I always loved that about how they really put something in each video game that led into the next Arkham game that nobody knew about. On to Arkham Origins, which is grossly underrated. And I don't really know why it got so much flack. I think it was just because of the bugs, but I recently just played it and beat it, and as of yesterday. And I will say this: there's a few bugs in there, but it's not something that is anything to really complain about. It's not any more than any other game. But this is one of my favorite storylines. It's happens on Christmas Eve, and Black Mask puts a hit out on Batman for $50 million, and he has all these assassins come to to Gotham City to kind of take down the Batman, and Batman just beats the shit out of all of them. And it also features the most epic Deathstroke fight. It was so satisfying and such a pain in the ass. In my recent run through that game, it still took me a couple times to beat him, because it's just the way that it is. It's hard to really figure out his move patterns, and I think there was so much done right in this game, and it really it really expanded upon the Arkham series and in the Arkham world, and Batman's gadgets and the way things operate. So it even started to use the detective replay sequence, and which was kind of focused more on the detective side of Batman, which was really awesome, which obviously then went on to play out in Batman Arkham Knight. So there's a lot good I can say about this. They really nailed Bane in this game. The Joker did really well too. What's his name? Did the voice?
Troy Baker.
Troy Baker, yeah, who does the voice for pretty much everything. He really did a great job as the Joker. He really emulated Mark Hamill really well, but also kind of did his own thing a little bit too. So, and he was kind of a more fucked up Joker, and in the sense of you really start to see where their relationship began. And just when you go through the hotel and you see all these people that Joker's killed, and Batman radios into Alfred and he says, I've dealt with psychopaths before, but nothing like this. It was really well done, I think, in my opinion.
Agreed, and grossly underrated, like you mentioned. This story is glorious, and it's my favorite story of all the games. The young Batman who isn't friends with the cops yet. There's so much you could do with video games, and the bounty, like you said, the bounty placed on his head by Black Mask with the 8 assassins. A great story, just a great story. It's a good story for a young Batman, a way to introduce villains we haven't seen yet, which is what this game did. It gave us Lady Shiva, it gave us a different version of Copperhead, it gave us Firefly for the first time, gave us Black Mask for the first time, on top of giving us the version of Bane that we didn't know that we needed. His story is superb. And speaking of his boss fight, that was really memorable and tough. We talk about Deathstroke, but that fight with Bane is kind of terrifying too at the same time.
It's everything that it needed to be.
Yep. Sure is. I loved Bane's backstory too, of how he became in that with the toxin and stuff like that. So again, we had the 2 voice actor change for this movie, regrettably. Anytime we can get Conroy or Hamill to do the voices of anything really is spectacular. And some people bitched that Arkham Origins didn't advance the series further, but I disagree with that. And my argument to that is it did advance the series because it gave Arkham Knight the ability, exactly like you said, Kyle, and I couldn't agree more, to fast forward and rewind the detective scene so you could pick up clues from different things and really, get a sense of what was going on. I mean, that's how you save Barbara Gordon in Arkham Knight, and that's how you first run into the Riddler in Arkham Origins, by using that new technology. So, I could almost understand somebody's argument if they said Arkham Origins was basically Arkham City. I think the joke either I made or heard once was that Arkham Origins is Arkham City's best downloadable content and most expensive. But I look at these games as two separate. Like, yes, are you playing Arkham Origins in the same area that you did at Arkham City? You are, but it's still different. It's not, you're not confined by the walls of Arkham City. It's a younger Gotham City. It's a more dangerous Gotham City. It's also, for whatever reason, I love that this game is set on Christmas Eve. It just gives it a different vibe, and I don't know what it is. It's a holiday. Maybe people aren't supposed to be out, and the fact that Batman's not at home with Alfred, just chilling, and out trying to save the people, risking his life against 8 people who are trying to kill him for $50 million. It just makes it sweeter. I don't know. But we really get an iconic moment, and it's the quote that started this podcast today, of when Batman and the Joker first meet, when the Joker reveals himself to be Black Mask and running the show, and he's the one who hired all the assassins. I love it specifically when Joker tells him that he's got so much more planned, because it's kind of like a, hey, he does have much more planned. We've already seen what he did in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. So back off, people who bitch about this game. Arkham Origins is really fucking good. It may have tapped the PS3 out a little bit, with some of the glitches, and admittedly, and that's fine. It's going to happen. It's life, human error. But WB Montreal did a good job. It wasn't as up to par with some of the others, obviously, but I could replay this game over and over again.
Same here. They always have replayability. I've played Batman Arkham Knight a million times and I never get sick of it. It's like the only game that I can just continually replay, and it's just always great to me.
That's right. So let's segue right into Arkham Knight, the 4th and final game of the Batman series, and we'll get into the future in a minute. But Arkham Knight, the sequel, the sequel to Arkham City, essentially, and Arkham Origins too. But what felt like for all that long, because we did get a new Arkham game every 2 years, in 2015 was the final bow to the Arkham Batman series, and boy, was it a fitting end. It was a war against the brand new Arkham Knight. And oh yeah, Scarecrow, just like Kyle said, as you saw on the boat in Arkham City, he was back and better than ever and as terrifying as ever. We finally got the Batmobile and got to have a lot of fun with it. We started the game with all the gadgets that we had from before in Arkham Knight, which I loved when they did that. I loved when they gave you the gadgets that you already kind of figured out and made in previous games and introduced new ones. The fighting was vastly improved, and the side missions were plentiful. I just love the side missions in the Arkham games. I don't know. It's so much fun to do. It's so much fun to get away from like the same storyline and go venture in different parts of the city. And then even that additional Rogues Gallery, the expansion that was after Arkham Knight was released with Killer Croc, Ra's al Ghul, Mr. Freeze, and the Mad Hatter. That was so much cool because it kept the story going. It gave you an additional, I don't know, half a day of shit to do. Taking all the villains too to the GCPD, I thought was really cool. It was a nice spin to that game, a nice added, fun little. Because I would spend hours just messing with them in their cells, walking by them, punching, breaking people's arms, talking to all the main villains in their cells. The massive Riddler challenges in the storyline with Catwoman just made it probably my favorite side mission in the Arkham Knight game. And there's so much to do. That's the one thing I love about Arkham Knight is there's so much to do. I just replayed it again. Lost another pet, Fred sandwiches back in November, and this was the game that pulled me out of that depression. So I don't know what it is with Arkham games and losing pets, but and what did the ending of this game really mean? Like, what do you think, Kyle?
Let me talk about why this is my favorite game of all time.
Yes, sir.
And it's even outside of the Arkham series. It is my favorite game of all time, and it's because it's the definitive Batman game, and it builds on its predecessors. It not only perfected the innovative combat system, it delivered amazing graphics, which are still great by today's standards, amazing story, and introduced the Batmobile. And I know the Batmobile has gotten a lot of flack, but for those who are against the Batmobile in this game, I will give you the biggest middle finger of all time, because it was amazing. It made sense, to kind of like, add something different to these games. And I mean, you got to pancake cars, drive on rooftops, and have an all-out tank battle. It's like everything that the Batmobile should be, and it wasn't overly done. If you feel like it was overly done, just go punch yourself until you fall over. That's what you just needed. It was necessary to shut the fuck up. The other thing that I really loved about it was the story was dark and brilliantly written. It connected everything from the past, and the game never felt like it stagnated. Not once. There was some real stakes here as Scarecrow, who was so excellently performed by John Noble, and he looked amazing. He actually detonates a fear bomb in Gotham City, and it plunges it into actual chaos. So you see Batman almost give his life to try and stop it from detonating. And I love that scene where he's, trying to put those canisters into those containers, where he's trying to, stop the bomb from detonating, but he doesn't do it in time. And he's telling Alfred, that this is the end for him. And it's a brilliant scene. But not to mention, like, how his massive dose of fear gas brings the visions of the Joker and the incredible guilt he feels after his death. And I just loved how the Joker just appeared throughout the game and making his quips and just kind of like being in Batman's ear. It was the best way to bring him back without it seeming tacky. And this was Kevin Conroy's quintessential performance of Batman. It was my favorite performance by him. And it was just because it was like the best and the darkest he's ever done. I mean, right in the beginning, he interrogates that villain, and he like breaks his arm, and then he's trying to get information from him, and he's like, "If you're lying, I'll come back and break the other one." It's just it was amazing. The ending.
The ending, and what I was going to say before the ending, it's almost like Batman had that iconic moment in every single one of the games. Like, my favorite from Origin is like, you want teeth, I want answers, or something like that when he's talking to Killer Croc. Yeah, I love it. So, but yeah, Arkham Knight ending, right? So Bruce Wayne, and when you're done with all the side missions and getting all the villains, you can initiate the Nightfall Protocol once you reach 100%, and it's basically Wayne Mansion blows up. Batman's dead. Bruce Wayne's dead. I mean, the world knows who Bruce Wayne is Batman because the Scarecrow made him reveal who he was. So now, and then you see at the end of Nightfall, you see a criminal in an alleyway, and then this figure of this just bat-looking creature comes down as Jim Gordon is talking. a monologue over the events of what you just got done playing. So, what does that ending mean, Kyle? What does it actually symbolize?
I think it's up for interpretation. Maybe it's something to the effect of like a Batman Beyond type of scenario, or like what you see at The Dark Knight Returns, where Batman fakes his own death, but he creates that army of like Batman followers. Um, and I don't know if you know this, but the Suicide Squad game that's supposed to come out, which they actually probably might even talk about this week more so at E3, is supposed to be connected to that universe. So maybe we'll get a good idea of what's really going on or what's happening in Gotham since Batman has left. And I think Bruce Wayne is still Batman, but maybe just a different version. And I don't know. I think whatever the case is, I think I'll love it. I mean, if it's Rocksteady, I mean, I hope they talk about it. They have to. I mean, they obviously have to.
I'm sure it'll get mentioned, and we can jump right into talking about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, because that is the next iteration of video games in this universe. It is confirmed to be connected to the Arkham universe. So we know for sure we're getting Harley Quinn, King Shark, the real Deadshot. And I say the real Deadshot is because the Floyd Lawton, who was in the Arkham universe, was apparently a copycat villain, and we're getting a more comic accurate Deadshot out of that right now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it looks cool. It looks more like the Suicide Squad version of Deadshot. Captain Boomerang is in there, just to name a few who will be tasked with taking down the Justice League, who are being controlled by Brainiac. So this includes Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, the Justice League being controlled by Brainiac, who's invading Earth, and that's really about all we know. Next to it being connected in the Arkhamverse, and it's coming next year in 2022. So, like you mentioned, I hope this game answers the question what the world is like without Batman. Is Dick Grayson taking the mantle over? Is Damian Wayne taking it over? Has Terry McGinnis and Batman Beyond taking it over? Is anybody Batman right now? Is Jim Gordon Batman? What's going on? How's the Bat family doing? I have a feeling they'll touch on that to a point. It might be something secretive where you have to stumble upon the answers, but I really hope we get to see something. And nods to the original game or original universe would be pretty cool. Like maybe you have to go to Arkham Asylum as the Suicide Squad. That'd be pretty fun to do.
I think it would only make sense to really include some of that in that game, because those games are so beloved, and it's just going to do fan service to include it. So it'll be interesting to see like a game with like the Justice League in it, like more of like an open world Justice League-y type of game. So it's an interesting choice, and I'm really hoping we get to see like an extended trailer or some gameplay this week. But if anything,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week. If anything.
Oh, hell yeah. So speaking of the Bat family in video games, how about, are you as excited for Gotham Knights as I am, Kyle?
Okay, this is going to be my snapping part of the portion. It's not
Snap
a ginger
on.
snap. It's not a ginger snap, but I don't know what kind of snap you would call it. But anyway, so DC fandom. Let's rewind the clock. DC fandom comes out last year. We were all at home because of the pandemic. This was like a 4 hours of DC stuff where they debut this, and
It was like a whole day.
It was like a whole day, and like
Yeah.
I basically just watched it all day. Like I didn't take any breaks. So, and I was eagerly anticipating the follow-up to Arkham Knight, and like foaming at the mouth practically. My favorite game of all time, because I kept hearing snippets here and there about like there's another Batman game. It's going to involve the Court of Owls, which is one of my favorite villains. And then you watch the trailer and you learn it's about Batman's family.
Wah, wah.
And I was so fucking pissed. I've never been that pissed about a video game as I was that. But it's like Arkham Knight was easily one of the most successful superhero games of all time, and it even ended on a cliffhanger. And then you're gonna follow it up with a game about the Bat family. Firstly, like I never personally found the Bat family to be super interesting. I mean, they have their part in the world of Batman, and they add to his kind of story, but I don't see why you need to make a video game with them when especially too there are so many other DC superheroes that they could have used, like I don't know, Superman maybe. Um, in the fact that yeah, again, the Court of Owls, which is quintessential to that storyline, Batman and the Court of Owls, and Batman's not going to be in it. Now I know what everybody's saying, like, oh, Batman's not really dead, and probably he is not, but you're not going to get a Batman game where he's the center character, and where you're going to get to be him. You get to be his, Bat family, and I don't see, I mean, I'm going to buy it because it's Batman related, and of course I have to have it. But I am not that excited about it. I'm like, you had a great Arkham Origins. Like, why didn't you follow it up with another Arkham Origins? Like, Roger Craig Smith did great as Batman and as a voiceover. I would have been perfectly fine with that. And people would have loved it. I mean, you could have added something different, add the Bat Pod in there, add Batmobile, Batplane, write another story. Maybe they felt like Arkham Knight just kind of wrapped everything up, but I don't know. Like, you could have done a lot more. But Gotham Knights, and I'll reserve my opinion until I see more of it. But I'm not that excited about it.
Fair enough, and I'm not going to comment on it more there because we're close to wrapping up for today. But fair enough. That's a solid point. I can't wait to play it though. Obviously, just because it is more Batman, and I will reserve my rights. But I'm definitely looking forward to Suicide Squad more. So last thing we'll do, Kyle, before I give you the quote of the day, is let's rank our games from top to bottom. Just the main four. Give me your least favorite to favorite.
Okay, and it's basically in the order the games came out. Least favorite is Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Origins, Arkham Knight.
Nice. All right. Yeah, for me, Arkham City is my favorite. Knight second, Asylum third, Origins that's last. But I have a favorite thing about all of them. So, Kyle, we will talk about next topic for next week. Thank you all for listening today on our mess about Arkham not Origins, the Arkham series of video games as it is. Thank you for following us online on social media at Fourth Motherbox on Instagram, Fourth Motherbox Podcast on Facebook. So, Kyle, leave us with a quote to end the wisdom for all these people for the rest of their week.
Well, because I forgot the quote last week, I've come up with two quotes this week. Okay, so the first is from Arkham Asylum, where Quincy Sharp, the warden, is stuck with Batman in a room in Arkham Asylum, and he's freaking out, and he says, "There's no way out. We'll never get out of here." And then Batman says, "There's always a way out. Always." One of my favorite quotes. The other quote is from Arkham Knight and is shared by Selena Kyle and Batman. And it's like right as you 100% the game and you defeat the Riddler and you're putting him in the Batmobile. And Catwoman is kind of wanting Batman to go with her. And Batman's kind of like saying that he's got to do this. And then she says to him, it's like, some things you can't do alone, Bruce. And then Batman responds, and some things you have to. That's one of my favorite quotes from that game. And I think that's it. Tom, did you drop your sandwich?
Well, yes, drop my sandwich. And for those of you, I had to break the fourth wall. I had to piss like a racehorse, so I had to run during your quote there. I was about ready to piss my pants. So
okay, you actually probably went to Motorboat Hagrid. Don't lie.
I did go to Motorboat Hagrid. How'd you know he was meeting for me? Oh, hey, Winston's in the video. Hey, puppy. Hi. Well, all right. So thanks if you've made it this far. We will give you, this will be posted. Well, of course, this will be posted. Kyle, I'm going to post this soon. Thank you for joining, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.